Welcome, John, to the show. We have worked together, but I have never had an opportunity to sit down and talk with you. And although we are thousands of miles away, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Please let the audience know something about your background and what you're doing today.
Well, I'm excited to be here, so thanks for having me on. I guess a good place to start from the entrepreneurial side of things would be to describe myself as an unintentional serial entrepreneur. So my current business is my third startup from scratch. So that's the Purple Guys thing. But to get to the Purple Guys, I kind of went through two iterations, and a quick way to describe it is I was wildly successful on the business side and wildly unsuccessful on picking partners. So learned along the way that the people you choose to go into business with, it makes a difference. And understanding the structure and what's there is a big part of having success in business.
Yeah, that sounds like that's a full podcast, but don't stop there. You got to at least tell them more than that, because I recommend, one of the things when I run into partnerships that have problems, often they're 50-50, which can be a disaster, is I always recommend what my grandfather taught me, a shotgun clause, where at any time, one of the partners can come to the other and say, I want to buy you out for X.
Yeah.
And the other partner can accept or buy that partner out under the exact same terms and conditions.
Yes.
So it eliminates all the, oh, you're not paying me enough and blah, blah, blah type of thing.
Yeah, I would say that's awesome advice. And I wish I'd had that my first two go-rounds. So to give a little bit more background, the first startup I did, my wife and I actually moved from Chicago to Kansas City. We funded the startup of a branch office. So it wasn't a brand new startup totally from scratch, but it was the first branch office this company had. We had a 38-page operating agreement. I actually wrote the business plan for the office. The goal was my wife would sell, I'd be the operations side of it. It was in the IT staffing world. And again, it was 38 pages long, the operating agreement. So it covered just about everything. And I discovered as part of this process that there's a difference between real equity and phantom equity. So that's one lesson learned. And we had phantom equity in the branch office. We came in February. By the time we hit October, we were on a $1 million revenue run rate, and we'd erased all startup costs. So it was wildly successful from a business perspective. At that point in time, the person that we were in business with did the math on the compensation plan that was outlined in the 38-page operating agreement. And I distinctly remember the phone call. He's like, well, I can't pay you this much money. I'm like, well, hang on. We agreed. It's a really long operating agreement. And it's clearly spelled out how we're going to get paid off the profits of the branch. He's like, well, you'd be making more than anybody here in Chicago. I like that. Why is that important to me? This is Kansas City. We took the risk. We actually funded the startup, which in hindsight was really crazy. We actually used my wife's commissions from when she was selling in Chicago. She forgave $60,000 in commissions, and that was the seed capital that started the business. So again, we were on a positive revenue run rate really fast, going crazy. The owner of the company is like, well, I'm not going to pay you. I said, well, then we're in an impasse. And so we quit, and we started another business, and he sued us. And I found out that anybody with $60 and a bad attitude can sue you, because we started a competing firm. We didn't take any clients, didn't touch them. Intentionally. Like, we're like, all right, whatever. Yeah. It wasn't that hard to start in the first place. We'll start it again. And so we launched into that. We got sued. My second entrepreneurial lesson, so this is version 2 of our IT staffing world. We got into business with my wife's uncle. And you mentioned, having the out clause. Since it was family, we only had a 1-page operating agreement. The discussions we had were, hey, we need a little bit of startup money. We want to start this business that's IT staffing. He knew literally nothing about the IT staffing world, but he did have a business. So I figured, all right, he might be a good guy to get into business with. We launched that company while we were getting sued. We went 0 to $10 million in revenue in a 4-year period, 0 to 90 consultants placed, so IT staffing, with 90 employees. And again, we went 0 to $10 million, 0 to 90 employees. The business was crazy successful. And it turns out that my wife's uncle is actually crazy. As soon as we got profitable and got out of our lawsuit, which we did wind up settling the lawsuit and got out from underneath that, the business was just growing like a rocket. I mean, if there was a hockey stick, that was a hockey stick, $0 to $10 million in 4 years. And the more money we made, the more belligerent her uncle got. And her father was actually involved in one of the other businesses that he owned. So it was this whole totally messy family dynamic. I mean, it was toxic, is to put it nicely. And the original conversation was, we need some seed capital. We want to grow this business and we want to own it. Like, that was the goal. But again, we had agreed to a minority stake because he was putting up the money. And then anytime we would bring up that subject, it just got worse and worse until finally, 4 years in, the money was crazy awesome. The business was doing crazy awesome, but we just could not stand the family dynamic. So we chose to resign. And we actually had real equity in that company. We had 25% equity. He had 75%. We made an all cash offer, said, this has got to end. We went to a bank. We leveraged everything we had. We're like, here's what we can do. It's all cash. And we resigned our positions with the company because we had to bring it to a head on September 10th, 2001. The next day is 9/11. So talk about putting stuff in perspective. We had been, it's all about money and stuff and who owns this business and who's in control. But, in terms of a reset, it's like, holy cow. Wasn't on a plane. I don't live in New York. My family's okay. It totally reset my expectations and made it just about money and stuff. Now, it was a lot of money and stuff, but it was just money and stuff. I will tell you that her uncle did not have an epiphany that day. It was still very much money and stuff to him. He totally rejected our offer. He sold the business and he moved the assets from what was the company we owned into a shell company and then sold the shell company. We didn't get paid a dime. And the only buyer on the planet is the only guy he could sell it to, which was the guy that wouldn't pay us in the first place. So talk about an expensive entrepreneurial lesson. So he sold, and he actually sold it for less than we offered. And he sold it he basically just liquidated the receivables is all he did. He did it completely out of spite, just so we wouldn't have the business. Sold it to the only person that would touch that thing with a 10-foot pole because it just stunk. And it took a little while to get over that and say it's just money and stuff and actually mean it, but it's just money and stuff. So we started again, and right on the heels of 9/11 was not the opportune time to start a business, but we did it anyway. So in October of 2001 is when we launched what we're doing now, which is Purple Guys. So that is my unintentional serial entrepreneur story.
Well, that is a great story. And the beauty about it is, and I have a couple other comments or questions, but the beauty about it is that when you started the third venture, the current one, you and your wife knew what you could do. You knew your capabilities by then really well down. And you also had the blessing that the two of you work well together.
Yeah, we work phenomenally well together, actually. We are, if anybody's ever taken personality profiles, we are a case of opposites attract completely. Because in almost every personality trait, we are on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Well, that's right. But you can make that work if you respect each other's opposites, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, Luis and Ronnie Alvarez down at Alvarez Technology Group in Salinas. Do you know them?
I don't.
Okay. Husband, wife team. You should next time, when there are conferences that reopen, you should try to connect with them. They are wonderful people and they work wonderfully together. There's a few others that I know, but it's only like 2 or 3 others, husband, wife teams that do it well. But my hat's off to you. I think that's fantastic. As I mentioned, that shotgun clause, it is invaluable when you're doing partnerships, even minority stakes. Yeah. That you have that option.
Oh, yeah. And we've had partners. So our current business, Purple Guys, we've had partners in and out. My wife's brother was a partner for a while, and we bought him out. Family dynamic is still fine. I've had other partners in and out of the business in a minority stake. And again, we're all still on speaking terms. So if you outline it correctly and enter into it knowing this is the relationship, here's how you get in, here's also how you get out, and you maintain that open dialogue, partners can be great. They can be really bad, but they can also be just fun.
Well, because when you're building the business, you're going for a partnership, thinking of the optimism of the business and moving forward. And you're not saying, okay, how do we get out of this?
Correct.
So I forget who taught me. It was decades ago. And somebody had, it was when Ingram was Ingram Micro D. Rich Leonetti, if I'm remembering the name correctly, was like their president.
Yeah.
And they decided, it was Micro D. And Ingram bought them to become Ingram Micro D. And they bought them, and then Rich lost his job. And I met him shortly thereafter. I was trying to form an industry association. And I said to him, do you feel bad about losing the job? And he said, no, not at all. He said, because what I learned years ago is that when you take a job or you enter into a partnership, the most important thing of that agreement is how you get out of it.
Yeah.
Not your salary, not what you get going in, that type. The most important thing is how you get. So I was compensated fine. He was great.
Yeah.
But that's not the way most people go through it. They have to learn that, and we don't teach that.
Yeah. And it's a tough thing to learn if you learn it the hard way.
Yeah. Especially what you had to do twice. And that's really unpleasant, and unpleasant in a family environment too. But as you said, you learned, and then you made it simpler and straightforward moving forward. So didn't have to repeat it again.
Yes.
So talk about, I know I'm segueing here off your story. Talk about the Purple Guys, because as I have told you previously, I love the Purple Guys branding, because, and people can see your background if they're looking at the video, but I encourage them, go look, it's purpleguys.com, isn't it?
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah. So I really encourage you, whatever business you're in, go look at purpleguys.com, wherever you're located, because you need to see how well they've branded. Everything's purple. And it just plays, it's so memorable.
Yeah. And it is totally an accidental brand. So the story of Purple Guys, so you kind of heard my story, and we launched into this business. And the way I actually found out about this business, which we're the outsourced IT department for small businesses, so the 20 to 100, 20 to 200 employee type companies, that's what we do. So I used to own one of those companies. That was my last staffing firm. And as we went through that meteoric hockey stick curve, I used to be technical. My kids will tell you that I can't do anything technical now, but I used to be technical. So I was actually, in addition to growing a crazy fast business, being the operations guy, being the president, I was also the internal IT guy for a couple of years. And it dawned on me finally one day, like, hey, there's better things I should be doing with my time instead of troubleshooting printers. So being in IT staffing, I was just going to hire somebody. I'm like, I'll just put somebody on staff and they can take care of this stuff for me. And one of the folks that worked for me said, hey, well, I know somebody who does this part-time. Why don't you outsource the IT support for the company? And I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So I did. It was a two-man shop. And I loved the model. They came in, I think it was like Tuesdays and Thursdays, and made sure everything worked and people could call them instead of bugging me as a president. So I thought it was great. And when we started this business in October of 2001, I approached those guys and said, hey, I'd like to buy your business, which they were open to. We had a good working relationship. So I bought their business. I really just gave them full-time employment because it really wasn't a scalable business the way they were doing it. But I bought the business. That's how I got into outsourced IT support. I was also going to do IT staffing again. But if anybody really remembers the economy right after 9/11, everything got shut down. So big businesses, which, the Fortune 5,000 were pretty much who we were targeting for our IT staffing world, they shut everything off. Like they outsourced, they got rid of all their contractors. So that was just dead. There was nothing to be had there. So not only did we launch a new business, we completely pivoted and started a completely different business. And from the start of that, I was a customer of the services. So I thought I knew what I was buying. Well, actually, I was buying IT support, but it took me a year to figure out what we actually do. We do IT support, but really we're a customer service company that happens to deal with technology. And once I figured that out, I hired differently. I structured my agreements differently. I marketed differently. I mean, and we are a customer service company that happens to deal with IT. And when you start hiring people that way, it makes a big mental shift in the company.
That's right. And I want to point something out, but I want you to continue with your story afterwards. But one of the things I've had to learn the hard way, John, is that you went in and you had the initial startup, didn't work out.
Yeah.
And you were thinking, this is still what we want to do. So you kind of stayed in that same industry and redid it.
Yeah.
And then after the second one, partially because of 9/11, you then considered something different, related, but different. And one of the hard lessons I've learned is that sometimes you're doing that business idea and you're thinking, oh, if I just stay a little bit longer, if I just try something a little bit differently, this idea is big, it'll really work. And you have to step back and say, hey, that's not the only opportunity.
Yeah.
There's another opportunity. Where's the other opportunity? Where else am I supposed to go? Because there is always another opportunity. And on the DISC scale, I'm like, I used to be 100%. Now I'm only 94% on the D. And so I'm really easygoing now. But you probably relate to that with your wife, who's probably high on the D. So the thing as another entrepreneurial lesson from your story that I would encourage people to consider is if you're stuck and you're either hitting a brick wall or you can't go farther in revenue or whatever it is, or something's going crazy with a partner, there are other opportunities. You have all this skill, and what you need to do is identify that next step, because I love the statement, God never wastes a season. You've gone through some stuff that you can apply in some new opportunity, and it'll probably be much more fulfilling to you. So I still want to go back to the purple guys, because I don't know whether you were black and blue and purple after getting beat up on these first two ventures, and so you chose purple. But how did you get from these two-man shop to then understanding what you do, that you're a customer service op that just happens to use technology, to purple guys?
So the way we became purple guys, so my IT staffing firm, we picked purple as our logo color. And I liked the logo color, and I liked purple. And my only good marketing idea is this. It's a purple pen that writes in purple ink. And so when I started this business, I actually didn't care what we called it. I hired an ad agency because I'm not that creative. But the only stipulation I had is I said, I don't care what we call it. We're going to have a purple logo, because I'm keeping my purple pens, because people love these things. Like, it was completely accidental back then, and we didn't use it for the brand or anything. It just, people loved the purple pens, and I wanted to keep them. So we had a purple logo, and that's why we had a purple logo. The company, and if you look at the little monster that's one of our characters, that symbol on his belly is actually a V in a circle. So it's not a check mark. It was a V, because the company Purple Guys was originally called Versant, Versent. Again, I hired an ad agency. I loved the name because Lucent was around at the time, and it was a high-flying tech company. So I thought, oh, we'll be like Lucent. I quickly realized it's a made-up word, so it's always spelled wrong. And about at least 60% of the people, when they saw Versent, would pronounce it Versant. No idea why. So I'm like, now we're a fine French company, and nobody can remember it or spell it. And it was, but way back when, so 20 years ago when we started this in 2001, everything we had to do was on site. So I bought everybody uniforms, just really logoed apparel. So either a button-down shirt or a polo type shirt with the company logo on it, the company name, but I got them in a bunch of different colors. My wife and I sat in a meeting with one of our customers, and there was, I think, 5 of us in the meeting. Everybody had a different colored shirt on. And after that meeting, my wife's like, this is ridiculous. Look, we look like a bunch of Skittles. Can we just pick a color and get a shirt and have a team uniform? And I'm like, all right, fine. So I wasn't using purple at all in the uniforms back then. So I took all of the shirts back. I got all new shirts that were purple, because that was the logo color. And within 2 weeks, our customers, independent of each other, when we would show up on site to do the work, which was the only way to really do the work 20 years ago, was be on site, they started saying, hey, the purple guys are here. And I am slow. I'm not that slow. We became the purple guys. You can remember the color. You can spell it. You can pronounce it. It is completely accidental, but it has been a great brand. So that is how we became purple guys.
It is awesome, just for what you say. It's easily memorable, spellable, pronounceable.
Yeah.
And I love the purple pen type of thing with purple ink. That's fun.
Yeah. And I'll
you
tell you,
can have fun with it.
Oh, we can totally have fun with it. So I've got, this is one of my purple shirts. My entire wardrobe is all purple. It's every pattern and every shade. I used to be really kind of fanatical about it. Had to be the company colored purple, but I've branched out. I will adopt all shades of purple at this point and all patterns. But if you bump into me at Costco on the weekends, I'm going to be in purple. If you bump into me in Florida on vacation, I have several purple swimsuits. I've taken it completely off the deep end. My 16-year-old daughter, I've got a 22-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 16-year-old. I don't think my 16-year-old's ever seen me in anything but purple. So it might be considered an illness at this point, but I've taken it totally to the extreme. I've got several different purple sports coats. I've got a few different pairs of purple shoes, it's a conversation starter, and we really kind of own the color. We've been at small business events, and I'll give you a very specific example. It was a small business event put on by the Kansas City Chamber, and there was probably 65, 70 companies just gathered in this room. We all had a little 3-foot round table with some marketing material on it. And I had 2 different people come up to me and say, "I love your purple gorillas." I had no idea what they were talking about, but they had these little gorillas in their hand. It was back when people did the suction cups that would stick to the inside of your window. They were little purple gorillas with suction cups that you could stick to their window. I had no idea who was handing them out, but they assumed it was me because we're the purple guys. So I had to go find one because I wanted one. So I went and found out who was handing them out and got one. But we get credit for the fact that there's other purple stuff in the room. It just makes us, back then we were not that big of a company. We're really not that big of a company now. But we got credit for being bigger just because of the brand and the color. So it has been awesome.
Well, and one of the beauties about it is that, every company has a logo color, but you incorporated it into the name because of that tag that people were saying. Yeah. And, that actually brings me to something that I wasn't planning to go into when we talked about this podcast, but, you're not going on site as much anymore. This is COVID times. And I mean, the majority of my business is with MSPs like yourself, but I'm curious, what are the different challenges that you've got? Well, actually not your company, but I'm more concerned about your clients because that's kind of our audience. The clients out there, what are the new challenges they've got as they've had to shift a lot of their people or all of their people to remote? Well, it's like we're doing now. It's everybody had to figure out how to use the tools that allow you to communicate remotely. So do you use Zoom? Do you use Teams? What is that platform that you're going to use to get some of that FaceTime back? So we had a huge shift in how we support people. And the industry as a whole has shifted to remote support over time. So we were kind of used to doing the work that we do, supporting people remotely, but usually we were supporting people inside the 4 walls of their business, not inside the 4 walls of their house. So helping people understand that the connectivity and their home Wi-Fi router works a little bit differently than when they were plugged in their office, and how to use the different tools. I will tell you that pre-COVID, we've got about 6,000 people that we support across 175 different organizations. So a bunch of small businesses, but about 6,000 people. Pre-COVID, we had probably 10% of that workforce was set up to work really effectively remotely. And in a week and a half, everybody had to get set up. So we set up about 5,500 people in a week and a half, which was a tidal wave of work. And it's one of those things when you tell war stories. That makes some really good war stories at Purple Guys of how we did that. But it was awesome. I mean, I was blown away with how much they were able to get done. But you get past that first wave, and what our customers started seeing is, well, am I really connected? Am I dialed in, connected to the right stuff? You've got the whole platform thing, but then where does your corporate data actually live? Because a lot of our customers still have their data inside the 4 walls of their business sitting on a server. There's a percentage of them that were already in the cloud, but more and more like, well, we don't have to be there. Why is our data there? Why don't we just put everything in the cloud? So we're doing that now for more of our customers. So it's pushed cloud adoption of every platform, and just helping them navigate those technical pieces
of what lives where, who owns and controls the data, which is another big thing of, do you still have backups even if it's in the cloud, and what questions do you ask of the cloud provider? And the other big piece of this is we saw people move home, and it was an issue when they were inside their four walls, but it's how do you make sure people are staying safe and secure? Because the corporate controls that exist when you're all in one spot are a little bit different when you all go distributed. So how do you make sure the antivirus is there? How do you make sure that web filters are there? How do you make sure you're training people on what to look for in email so they don't click on the wrong thing? And we've seen a huge spike in people clicking on the wrong stuff. They're not doing it on purpose. It just feels like they're less focused, and they're probably more distracted because everybody's also had to learn how to homeschool while they're still working.
Yeah.
But just we've rolled out more security awareness training in the last 6 months than we rolled out in the last 3 years. And just keeping people with that stuff top of mind, and the tools and the technical security layer has become much more critical.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, one of the guests I've had in the past is Zach Schuler of Ninja, who does some, unique training with caricature, anime, whatever it is, real short stuff, make a point, does a great job. I'm going back to the branding just for a moment.
Yeah.
With the Purple guys, do you guys do a yearbook?
We do not.
Internally. I mean, I would suggest you guys got the ideal platform for company culture to do a yearbook that has photos. I was just on a podcast earlier today where I was recommending it as a team bonding exercise, but somebody's got to take the lead in it. But to have a year by, 2021, 2022, et cetera, Purple guys, yearbook that's, basically praising your people and successes and that type of thing might be a good sales tool too, but great bonding thing and
that's a
fun
great
thing.
idea. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just happened to occur to me. So if I'm working with, one of the things that occurs to me or that I've heard, when people move home, are you getting stuck where clients are trying to get you to support their home computers and they're trying to do business stuff on the home computer? Because that seems nuts to me.
Yeah, we had to push back pretty hard. And early on, we were doing whatever we needed to do just to make sure they could keep running as a business. Yeah. And then we put some framework around it. I was like, all right, we got through the panic. We got through the crazy wave. Now it's time to actually have a serious conversation. This is not sustainable. You can't use the same computer your kids are doing homeschool on to do your business stuff. The assets were there inside the four walls. Figure out how to get them to the people's houses or buy new ones. And again, they don't have unlimited budgets. So we figured out that shuffling piece. But we pretty much insist that the assets that we are supporting are corporate owned, which is what they would be if they were inside their four walls. So we had to go through that process, absolutely. And we've still got they've all got a home router, a home network connection, and we will not make home visits. we will make suggestions of, you can try this, but ultimately it makes it harder to do that support because there's that connectivity layer that normally you're plugged into the wall inside of your office. That's not an issue. But when everybody's remote, everybody has now that new connectivity variable of, is the speed, slowness, connectivity issue your device? Is it in your laptop? Is it in however you're connected? Are you connected wirelessly at home? Are you actually plugged into your home router? Is it the home router? Is it the cable company? You've got every flavor under the sun of connectivity at people's houses. So it's added a layer of complexity for sure.
And what are you seeing that people are doing to connect really well as they are remote, or there's a hybrid with limited number of people in the office that's working well with them beyond, just a Zoom meeting or whatever platform they're using?
The culture stuff that we're seeing, and we've actually helped with some of it. We've helped some charity not-for-profits actually run an online auction and that kind of a thing. So that was kind of fun to be involved with. And then we're seeing a lot of people do virtual happy hours, coordinate a time to have a team lunch where they are using Zoom to do it, but they leverage the platform and, the various different home delivery food stuff to send lunch to their employees and actually have a team lunch all together at the same time. So you can get a little bit of that feel, and leverage the technology to do it. It's still not the same, but those are the things we're seeing people leverage the platform to kind of still keep their team camaraderie and the culture together.
And so many of these apps are not intuitive, like Microsoft Teams. Okay, and I know it's a popular. Okay, I think the thing's half baked. So,
It's a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, I know, but then you look at some of the other things that they threw out. Yes. I think it's bookings or whatever. It's like, come on, guys. So, but that's been a big disappointment. But are you getting asked more for specific training on, okay, how can my people maximize this app that you're recommending or that we're already using?
We have definitely gotten pushed to do training. We've actually partnered with a local training center here in town, and we've done a couple already, where we'll do a free 1-hour webinar on how to use Teams. Because yes, it's not necessarily 100% intuitive. And those have been really successful. And then we're a conduit for them, and they get a discount if they're associated with the Purple Guys to buy classes that are a deeper dive and fuller picture of the different tools and suites. And they are primarily a Microsoft trainer. So it's helped us, it's helped them, it's helped our clients because they get a discount. So we've actually absolutely seen a huge push to get trained.
Well, that's great. You know, it reminds me of Mike Estep and actually his wife, Sherry. Their husband-wife team in Atlanta. They're another good couple for you to meet. Yeah. They're wonderful people, if you don't already know them. But he does, I think it's a monthly training on Office 365.
Yeah.
And he says it's packed every month because he has the meeting and he's really into it. So he teaches, here's the new stuff and here's the stuff to wait because it is half baked, type of thing. And that's so valuable.
Microsoft never has half baked stuff. What are you talking about?
Yeah. No comment. What's the lemon? The Kool-Aid you're drinking there? So sick joke if you actually know what it refers to. But so John, if people want to, talk to you more about your entrepreneurial journey, want to learn more about the Purple Guys, that type of thing, where do they go to learn more or get a hold of you?
Well, purpleguys.com is all the Purple Guys stuff. My contact info is actually there. I'm on LinkedIn as Purple Guy. So you can look up John Schram, or you can also look up Purple Guy. We've also got a LinkedIn page for Purple Guys. Those are probably the two primary ways to connect to me. And I'm always happy. I love to talk the business of business. And that's one of the things I love about this business is that almost every month as we're onboarding and interacting with new customers, I'm like, no way is that a business. Like, can you make money doing that? It's fascinating. So it's just been really cool. And especially as, right now, and it's what I tell our staff at every staff meeting. It's, the technical stuff is important, and it's always kind of been important. But because of the way people are connecting now and staying plugged into society, the technical layer is critical now. So when we're able to do what we do and do it well for our clients, the 6,000 or so people that we support, that's a huge percentage of the community here. They're going to have a better day. They're going to be in a better mood. They're going to be in a better mood while they're actually at home. So they're going to be nicer to their families. Their companies are going to do better. They're going to stay in business. So it's a chance to really just have a massive positive impact on the entire community. So it's elevated the stature of our services even more because of the way the environment's changed right now.
Awesome. I could take that as a lead in and talk for an hour. I'm not going to do that. Go to purpleguys.com, see the branding, learn from it, get a hold of John if you want to talk more. I really appreciate you coming on, John. This has been great. And I look forward to when we connect again.
I appreciate it. It's been awesome.